reproducing. But I think for a lot of people they just don't care about reproduction, and this is like the main difference. Like really changes everything. When you care about reproduction, you need to take care of yourself. You cannot like become too degenerate. You need to like maintain your finances, your like social relationships. You need to like do a proper job. You like cannot get AIDS or anything. But when you don't have the drive, all these things can stop being taken care of. You can have people do dangerous sex work. This happens all the time in the trans community. You can have, and also in the gay community, super common. You can have people not maintain the finances, so people are like broke. They might spend all the money they have on like trying to have some surgery or whatever that they don't even need. They might they might transition and not bank their sperm, which is like I have in the transvaccine manifesto bank their sperm. I think most people just ignore that part because they don't care. So they transition, they don't really save up, they don't really take care of their career, they might do dangerous sex work, and like they don't really live for the future because they don't really have a future in the true sense.
Yeah. Well, you know that Western civilization doesn't have, in the near term, it doesn't have a future. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen over the long term, but like,
Yeah,
I think most people, this was getting back to my sex cult thing, is that most people don't really see like any hope for whatever you want to call it, nationalism or anti-feminism or a return to sanity. Most people don't have, they're not banking on, oh, we're going to vote the right guy in and the dark clouds are going to dissipate. Most people, and this is why I want to rebrand myself as the cope maxer, is that I'm like falling into degeneracy myself. Like I see it in myself. So
yeah, having a sex story is an example of degeneracy in my opinion. Anyway, what you said about is true and false at the same time. It is true that right now the West is having really bad trouble and it might be really hard times ahead. That doesn't mean you just give up and not reproduce. You still need to have children and build for the future. So you still need to like build ideally a dynasty because it's not like the West is going to like just collapse and like disappear. It's going to be most likely if it is a collapse like in the Roman Empire. It's going to be civil wars or like a political struggle. At least it's going to be violent and chaos. So from the struggle maybe something good will arrive, but it is not guaranteed in any way. So you need to have children ahead of that, like because let your mindset has to be that your children can take care of this thing. They have your good genes. They can like handle the trouble ahead of you and like do it well and even enjoy it. They will enjoy the chaos
yeah.
and thrive. They will like
Yeah,
thrive.
well, I have dominant genes, and so like, if I can put my children in a position of advantage, they're just going to they're going to be like chopping off zombie heads in the zombie apocalypse and fucking loving it. You know,
Yeah, and
they're going to love it.
what I will also say is that the thing with this chaos situation is that then you really want to do the R strategy of reproduction. If you're familiar with the RK pseudoscience, it's pseudoscience within humans
Yeah.
by the way, but if you're familiar with it, what you really want to do now when it's ahead of chaos is that you want to reproduce a lot, so you have because if you look at what happen is that you might actually be worse off being prominent because then you get like executed because you are like a prominent intellectual that make people mad. So you might actually be better off being like nobody, somebody that people don't care about. So you actually want to have as many children as possible at the different location and have some people like raised by the state because then some people will be safe because even if you like it
Well,
persecuted, people don't care about your children that you never see.
yeah. No, I agree. That's an interesting insight too, because I think on sort of like the logical conclusions of like politics and dynasticism and things like that. Like Yeah, I've thought it through the same conclusion. Like, well, like for me personally, I was a public intellectual, and I was like rising very rapidly through the ranks in academia. Like I was like shooting to the top, right? But you can't, like, let's say, okay, so I want to take my mind and I want to apply it to these problems as they are in reality and not these pseudoscientific problems, right? Like my mind can't be contained by pseudoscience. Well, have I ever made a fucking YouTube? No, I don't do social media. I don't publish. I don't go on anything public. The most public thing I do is like Hormaxer. But it's like, yeah, I mean, I guess as an intellectual, sure, I could be a prominent public intellectual if I wanted to be, but I don't want to be harassed, and I want to be like camouflaged. And if I'm running a dynasty, like you said, like you don't want people to know what's going on in the back end. You just want to run your dynasty. You don't want to be like a public anti-feminist. You want to just quietly run your dynasty. You want to quietly make your money, quietly accumulate your property, build your garrison, and when the chaos comes, like you were the patriarch that built this giant bulwark, and it's just there, and
Yeah,
that's what
but
matters.
there is one thing you have to consider too is that often in order to reproduce successfully you need status. If you are like a nobody, females might reject you. So if you right now, if you cannot like find a female to impregnate, you might have to do this status maxing as like a public anti-feminist, because then you get like attention and maybe you can make someone pregnant that way. So you need to like gamble maybe. So because if you think you're going to die childless now, you need to change your strategy right away. You cannot like wait until you die without children. Like if you understand the importance of having children, you need to do what's needed. Like even if it is something you really don't want to do. So
Yeah, no, I'm just going back and forth because it's like I feel like I'm just floating around on all these different waves, and like my head's above water, right? Like I'm at the point in life where my head is finally above water. It took me 37 years to get my head completely above water, um,
yeah, but
and now that go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, what you need to do is that you need to save up money as much as possible, not spend money. You need to save it in like good ways so you have enough resources. So once you become like a public intellectual, you need to have savings so you can like ride out if you get cancelled or fired from whatever job you have. So this is like the thing you need to wait
Yeah.
it out before you do make it gamble to have a safety.
Yeah, well, see, I took a sort of degenerate turn about 2 months ago, and I started spending more money. I got the sex doll. I bought a shitload of games on Steam.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
spending
bad.
money on Hearthstone cards.
Yeah, don't do any of that bullshit.